Alright, so moving on to season 2, we transfer from Malaysia to Australia, and for some reason we go from 39 days to 42.
Without any real reason, apparently, because 42 days did not add anything significant other than a recap episode.
Yeah, and honestly, I personally do not like recap episodes, and unfortunately, this will not be the only season to do it.
Oh, come on, seriously?
Yes.
Why? Okay, because here's the thing 42 days, I thought that maybe there might have been like a twist to this season in which they would have like an additional challenge, reward, or immunity or something like that, or maybe like an additional like contestant or something. But no, like literally 42 days and the payoff was basically nothing. So if you're telling me that we go still back to seasons after this with 39 days and there's still an even amount of survivors to, you know, not necessarily kick off the show, but to vote off, and we still have a recap episode,
Correct.
why is that necessary?
I mean, even when I was watching Survivor as a child, and I was watching these episodes week by week, one episode per week. Even then, I was still not a fan of recap episodes.
Well, yeah, because like it's for all intents and purposes, it is pretty much a big waste of time. If you were to like very quickly recap, like maybe you can say like I don't know, 10-ish minutes, like what players were voted off up to this point, the most notable moves that have been made on the show to date, and perhaps that would make sense. But no, it's like an entire episode dedicated to showing events from like legitimately each episode, each interaction that was memorable for both good and for bad, and then so on and so forth. It's like you want this to go as fast as possible to get to the next episode, but lo and behold, you have to wait another week. So this being the first season, the first and only season to be filmed for 42 days, yeah, I can definitely understand why it was decided afterward that like they're gonna go back to 39 days. It didn't do anything, it didn't bring anything to the table, and I'm glad that they did away with it at the very least. There's no real reason for the survivors to have to suffer even a few extra days for what essentially amounted to nothing. And so, Australian Outback. It is quite the change to go from Borneo all the way over to this side of the world.
Yeah,
And
the land of kangaroos and oversized spiders.
ugh, I just felt a chill up my spine. That better not have been a spider. So apparently this season, I looked it up. The season was filmed at the Goshen cattle station. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right. On the bank of the Herbert River in North Queensland, Australia. So they were within like a pretty fair distance away from where they could be able to receive like additional help if anything goes wrong. But this was, I would say, definitely a rather exciting change in location for Survivor because of what has been established to be like such an incredibly dangerous environment, especially wildlife wise. And right along the river, too, where Australia is incredibly famous for having some of the most dangerous, what was it, like crocodiles in the world?
They seem to have the most dangerous everything in the world.
Yeah, that is true. So this, off that alone, this definitely makes for an interesting, or at the very least, an exciting location for Survivor. So it's definitely going to help, hype up the name of the show even more. Like, how are you going to manage against the wildlife here? And surprisingly enough, I don't necessarily think that they showed a whole lot of them having to deal with the wildlife per se, but it was more so the weather conditions of the Australian outback.
Yes.
That that I remember being the most it made for the most tense situations that I have seen so far. Granted, you've seen a lot more Survivor seasons than I have. For me, like starting off with, 45 and then going pretty much up to where I 49 and then watching season 1 and then having been able to watch season 2, what happens in season 2, like basically acts of nature and such, it's it's pretty scary what ends up happening to the survivors on this season. Floods alone that basically legitimately washed away almost everything that they had. And there, I can't remember which episode it was exactly, but it had to have been like the final, like one of the final episodes where you had the survivors actually go into the river in the dark of night to find their can of rice. It's like, dude, I
Yes.
would not nearly be as brave as you all. It's like, it's in the dark of night. There's gotta be freaking crocodiles in there. How did you manage all of this? I don't know how these people did it, but these are some tough cookies. I will absolutely say that. And funny enough, even being on a river and kind of going along with what happened in Survivor Borneo, once again, both tribes are not very good at fishing. Either there's no fish in the river whatsoever, or they have just not ever once improved at a single point within the show how to fish.
I was gonna mention the possibility of not a whole lot of marine life in those rivers.
No, there really wasn't. I think that genuinely speaking, the biggest way for them to survive was through rewards, through rice, most of all. And in one instance, chicken, I believe, and certainly a wild boar or a wild pig.
Yes.
Which actually, that would be a pretty good segue into talking about the interesting things that happened in the pre-merge. Because there were definitely a lot of memorable moments in there for
Mhm.
me.
Yeah,
You want to
so
start off?
in the pre-merge we had the eliminations of Deb, Kel, Marilyn, Mitch, Kimmy, and Michael.
And wait, did
Well, actually,
Jeff?
Michael was not properly eliminated. He was not voted out. He was meta medevaced, medically evacuated.
Yes, the first person to be medically evacuated off of the show, if I remember correctly.
Correct.
To be honest, I faintly remember like most of the people that got voted off in the pre-merge. The very first one, Deb, I just remember her being incredibly militant, tried to take control of the group way too early on. She was pretty like socially inept and rather bossy to the point where people were just like, dude, you're killing the vibe. We want you out. And once again, that continues a trend from like, what happens in like season 1. There was no real strategy to voting her off other than she's too bossy, we don't like her, let's just vote her out.
Yep, likability is a factor.
Yes, absolutely. The next one being a Kel, I
Beef
remember
jerky.
him. Yes, exactly. Beef jerky. This was definitely one of those moments that got me really thinking. It's like, why, like, they literally went off of the word of one person in the group, and even without any conclusive evidence that this person brought on any food onto the show, they just went ahead and voted him off on just the mere possibility. And there wasn't even anything to like, his likability or anything. I know that he wasn't very good at fishing despite his constant attempts to try to contribute to the group. That was the primary reason why he was voted off, is because Jerry suspected him of cheating in this game of Survivor. Nobody came up with any real evidence, and they were like, oh, well, we can't have this. Off you go. And I think that was the first instance of establishing what I believe is the first instance of a villain on the show.
In a way, Richard Hatch was a villain.
The thing is, I never really saw Richard Hatch as a villain, though.
I mean,
It was just,
I think it's the fact that I think that it's also a generational thing where being that egotistical, like Richard was, that is quote unquote villainous. And to be fair, let's take a moment to compare Rich to Jerry. What did Jerry actually do that made her villainous?
other than just potentially blindly accuse somebody of sneaking on food onto Survivor, and I remember correctly, she was also in open conflict with another one of the members on her tribe about how to cook rice with Keith, and also very very openly flirting with another one of her tribe members, despite him constantly rejecting her. Aside from those three aspects to her, I don't really think that there was much of a reason to really call Jerry that much of a villain.
Yeah, she was just annoying.
There you go. But even so, poor Kel, the army intelligence officer, got voted off.
So the Kel situation is a weird one, because I would think production would make sure nobody is able to sneak food onto the show,
Yeah, I would think that like they would really go through your stuff to see what it is that you have. Like they'd have to be thorough about it.
meaning Jerry would be in the wrong regarding her accusation. But when accused, Kel did not really have a good rebuttal or counter argument.
Yeah. What was it he said that he was
He,
eating?
he was chewing on grass.
What?
Wait, what grass is brown? Because I've seen dried up dead grass that's more like a yellowish color.
I don't know. And that definitely was not the smartest thing for him to say. You'd have to be under some extreme circumstances in order to pass off grass in some kind of like a dark brown hue in the same way that jerky is, but I don't know. He to a degree he did kind of dig his own grave with a statement like that. So
Yeah, this is why for me, the Kel versus Jerry situation, I really can't find myself picking a side because I can see them both being in the wrong.
definitely. It just so happens that like it's easier to, vote off a person that is suspected of it simply because in in moments where you are very hungry, you do not have any food and you think that one of your teammates is hiding food from the group, then that mindset is definitely a mob mentality against that person in particular. So it sucks for him either way. And who knows how he would have fared if he had stayed in the game a little bit longer, but that just so happened to be the way that it played out. And then like moving on to the next person, that ended up getting voted off, Marilyn. She was the one person that defended Kel. What was memorable about her was just the fact that she ultimately did not agree with Kel being voted off. They did not certainly did not agree with the entirety of the group going through Kel's things to make sure that he wasn't actually carrying beef jerky. And when she called the group out on that, that got her voted off. It's like, dude, we don't trust you. You want us to go ahead and tell the truth to somebody whom we don't like? Yeah, no, go away. And that was it.
Yep, being the outcast.
Poor thing too. I do remember her being very likable, and she was pretty close with Tina too. But even Tina, I remember she had to acknowledge, and this was one of the things that really did establish Tina's character pretty early on for me, was the fact that like um she she did not want to I guess let the emotions, the friendship cloud her judgment. So ultimately she did end up voting Mad Dog Marilyn off the show. Poor thing. And Mitch. Not really on my end, nothing can really be said about Mitch, but apparently he is the tallest survivor player to date at 7 feet tall.
Okay, that I did not know. And the only thing I remember about Mitch was his exit confessional after he got voted off. He just said, "Thank goodness, because I am hungry."
That's pretty real though. I
Yep.
don't blame him for that. Um I do believe because I do remember I was doing a little bit of research with these contestants and he is, I want to say, the first person to be sent home based off of past votes against him. Because it was a tribal council where he and Keith were deadlocked. I do want to say that the only real way for Keith to stay in the game was to essentially determine, like, okay, based off of who, like, whose name came up the most in past tribal councils, and ultimately it just ended up falling onto Mitch. Like, nobody really like was a deciding factor in that. That just so happened to be like, oh well, that sucks, but bye.
Yeah.
And Kimmy, oh my god, actually Kimmy did have quite a few memorable instances. She was definitely one of like the most outspoken people on the show, even on, you know, topics that for all intents and purposes really ought to be kept to oneself. And if I remember correctly, that was actually one of the reasons for why Deb also ended up being like one of the first people to be booted off of the show. It's because Kimmy was just too outspoken, too open with her, I guess, her vices. I'm not sure if that's like the right way to describe it, but she was a pretty strict vegetarian.
Yes. So I remember that because the whole killing, what was it? It was either the chicken or the pig that she took issue with.
Well, I would say both. Because I do remember when, what was it? It was, so the tribes were Ogakor and Kucha, right? So I do remember Kucha did win a reward to have, it was like two or three chickens or something, but they wanted to space out like on what days should we kill the chickens? And she was very much against it to a point where that ultimately resulted in some kind of a fight between her and Alicia. Apparently,
Oh,
the
yeah.
whole finger waggling in your face or whatever thing is a famous moment in Survivor.
Well, it's
Interesting.
it's probably her only memorable moment, Alicia's.
Really now.
Because I don't remember Alicia for anything else other than that.
Like Alicia wasn't necessarily militant or anything, but she was getting like really fed up with Kimmy for just
Being
trying
soft.
to there you go. There you go. But I do remember there was a showdown between Kimmy and Tina. The whole I don't know what they call that challenge where it's like the disgusting dishes roulette or something like that.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about.
So that one initially I do remember that she had to eat, what was it, like it wasn't a worm. No, the worm was a deciding factor. No, it was like a cow brain, I believe. She couldn't do it. So ultimately it came down to Kimmy facing off against Tina. They had to eat like a mangrove worm, I believe. Kimmy finally mustered up the courage and was able to devour that worm first. Tina, I believe, ended up vomiting, if I remember correctly. And funny enough, even though this was definitely a major win for Kimmy, for Tina, it wasn't even that big of a loss. This was
Actually,
probably the one time. Go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say that I agree with you.
Yeah, because this was the one time that I truly remember Tina ever having suffered any major losses whatsoever. And the interesting thing is, Tina never got any repercussions for it. Like nobody ever gave her crap or anything whatsoever. Nobody even thought to like vote her off even though she lost.
Yeah, especially in these early seasons where, oh, if you're the reason why we lost that day, you're gone.
Exactly. And that also like that's what got me like really confused because, coming fresh off of Survivor Borneo that essentially established that mindset of you lost, you leave. Tina at that point was able to develop such good relationships within the people within her group to the point where they couldn't bring themselves to vote her off. That right there, that it took me a while to really realize it, but genius. Who would have thought that being in a good social standing with your tribe mates would help you out in the long run, right? She lived to survive another day.
Yes, it's almost as if having good social skills is a requirement for this game.
Mm-hmm. There you go. So unfortunately, yeah, Kimmy just ended up being yet another Kucha tribe member to be voted off. And the next person, and this, being the first medical evacuation from Survivor, Michael. I remember him primarily for being a city boy who became quite the bloodthirsty dude on Survivor.
Yes, that was quite nerve-wracking.
Hmm. Like supposedly him like having this dream of being able to hunt down a pig in the wild, and then when he finally did, it was it was disturbing for him to be so enthusiastic about essentially stabbing an animal to death. Like, dude, I know that your whole reasoning for being as violent as you are right now is so that you can be able to provide food for your group, but that was much. That was too much. Actually, on that topic, the whole providing for the group, I do remember he tried to establish himself as pretty much the leader of the group, and not everybody took very kindly to that, especially Alicia.
Well, yeah,
He
because it's Alicia.
true. Him self-inserting himself as like essentially being a leader because I remember there was a prayer circle around the food that they were about to eat and Michael essentially being like essentially that like asserting himself as a leader and then the camera cuts to like certain faces that are just kind of like having those faces of like wait, did he seriously just say that? Like yeah, he had some relationships to where people were able to keep him or tolerate keeping him on specifically because he was able to provide. It was that aspect that really ticked people off about him. But even then, it's it was pretty sad to see that like they genuinely did feel sad to see that he had burned his hands significantly to the point that he had to be taken out of Survivor.
Oh, he burned more than his hands. It was also part of his chest and shoulder.
Oh yeah, because it was like, what was he doing again?
He
Was he like
was,
cooking rice or something?
I think he was attending the fire, but then I guess he inhaled so much fumes that he ended up passing out while bent over it. So
Yes.
he fell into the fire.
And the way that like this was the first time that you could really see like the camera crew and the shaky cam of it as they were rushing over to like really go up close and personal to see like okay what was going on with Michael, why is he going into the river, and then it shows you kind of like what happened with his hands and it was pretty gnarly.
Oh yeah.
And that entire sequence where all of them were saying their goodbyes, waving at the helicopter and everything, it was pretty sad for sure. Like as much as Michael was pretty odd in the survivor setting and he was doing pretty well to help his tribe out with the challenges and everything, as weird as he was, you could definitely tell Kucha missed him. They missed him a lot. And you could even argue that with Kucha gone, or sorry, with Michael gone, Kucha suffered quite a lot going into the post merge, I would say.
Yeah, their morale was down.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then we make it into the post merge. But
Yes.
I so this is post merge, but the next person to be voted off did not make the jury though. And that was
Jeff Varner.
yes. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I barely remember the dude.
I certainly don't. But I do know I was spoiled that he returns for another season, and oh boy, he left a mark for all the wrong reasons.
No.
We will,
Really?
yeah, we will eventually get there.
How far away does that happen?
Very, it's like
Oof.
it's like late 20s, early 30s.
Jesus, okay. Oh my gosh. All right. Well,
Yeah,
interesting.
I was reading a little bit earlier that I guess this season Australian Outback has the most returning players across the rest of the series.
Really? From both pre-merge and post-merge of this season?
Yes,
Oh, that's crazy.
because looking at the cast, it's wait, so we have how many castaways? 16? Yeah, 16 castaways. And let's see. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. I know at least eight of them come back for future seasons. So literally half of the cast.
That's actually pretty surprising.
Yeah, well, season two is the most watched season of them all.
You know what? I keep forgetting that detail. Putting that detail into this whole thing, that does end up making a whole lot of sense. Yeah, honestly, Jeff in this season didn't really leave that much of a mark. Um, I barely remember him. Shoot, I barely remember why he even got voted out in the first place. He probably must have been like another one of those instances where it's like, oh, if you had like, past votes cast against you, then you get voted off.
For a moment, I thought you were talking about Jeff Probst.
No, sorry. No, Jeff Varney. Oh, yes, let's just go ahead and vote the host of the show off.
That would be funny.
Then we like going, further into the post merge, but now finally getting into people that would make up the jury. Now that's where we get over to Alicia. Alicia being the first jury member. And going back to that detail that we mentioned when talking about Kimmy, the whole famous finger waggling argument that she had. Honestly, I always saw Alicia as just kind of like the person that had the whole it's like she wasn't militant, but she was more like what's the phrase? It's like take no prisoners, like type of personality. It's like you
Mm,
like if you play this game, you play this game. Like do not
very,
shy away.
very direct and competitive.
There you go, competitive, but most certainly direct for sure. Uh like she could pick up on, some social cues, but she wasn't particularly good at like being able to like maintain those relationships to not make her some kind of a target. But then again, I think that the reason for why she ended up being voted out was because she, for all intents and purposes, after Michael was gone, she was Cooch's like strongest member. So it would make sense for them to essentially vote off Cooch's most like physically threatening member, so as to, and once again, just like with Survivor Borneo, start the snowball of voting off Coocha members one by one by one by one by one. But then I was kind of proven wrong because the next person to be voted off wasn't from Coocha. No, sorry. No, that ended up being, voting off, Survivor's quote unquote "first villainess."
Jerry Manthe. Oh boy.
Seriously, where do we begin with this one?
Well, I can start off with because my introduction to Jerry is actually in one of her returnee seasons, so I have a very different opinion on her.
How so?
I guess you can say that she grew up.
You mean to say she's more mature in her
Yes.
later seasons?
Yes.
So knowing that, how was it like viewing her in her like literally her first appearance on Survivor?
Okay, even watching this one, I still have a hard time calling her a villain slash villainess because I don't think being annoying is necessarily villainy of any kind. But even then, I know what she later becomes, so I see how this immature adult, well, matures. So I'm just thinking, yeah, she becomes a better person later.
Gotcha. Because I do remember, I think that the mindset that I had towards her when we were, first watching it was that I didn't necessarily like particularly like her or anything. Like that's not to say that she was a bad person or character like on the show. It's just that like um her comments
Hmm.
and her actions, that immaturity that before she changes herself for later seasons, it did lead me to kind of viewing her a little bit like unfavorably, especially with the whole accusations against Kel. Again, granted, Kel didn't exactly have a good argument def- to defend himself, but she did do some things that just kind of made me view her in not the best light. But there was no doubt that a lot of like the things that, she did, a lot of the comments that she made and like even like her actions, there's no doubt she was great for TV
Yeah.
in in that sense. Some of this a lot of the stuff that she did just kind of came off as sometimes nonsensical, but definitely pretty petty, for sure. Especially against Keith, the professional chef that has cooked for celebrities and politicians, I believe he said, and Jerry just can't stand the fact that this one professional chef doesn't know how to cook rice. That was literally the most comical rivalry that I have seen on this season. And Keith hating her for having horrible musical like basically hated every single time she tried to like play the drums or whatever it was, those was it like bongos or something that she brought as like a personal item
Yes.
onto the show. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that I faintly remember that one instance towards their rivalry, and it was just so weird, but I couldn't help it. It was pretty funny.
I mean, if I
And I
can
think
if I can side with Jerry for a moment,
mhm,
there's a lot of cultures where rice is a staple. How do you not know how to cook rice?
that is true. That is definitely very true.
Because I am reminded of something that in an Arab friend of mine said that if he did not know how to cook rice, then he cannot call himself Arab.
Oof. It's pretty integral, isn't it?
Yes.
It's probably either because I remember I joked about it at one point pretty recently. It's like, making rice is like, haha, that is the single most important thing that you need to know when you come onto Survivor. Which you were like, uh, social
No.
game is actually very important, but yeah. Let's put knowing how to cook rice at the very least at second place, maybe.
No, I'm bumping down to third. Number
Ooh,
two,
what would be?
number two, and some might argue number one, is know how to make fire.
Oh, that's true too. Yeah, that's true. And also, not to mention the fact, I think that the another reason for why people ended up calling Jerry a villain is because pitting her against Colby, and apparently Colby. Now that I know that he is a returning person for later Survivor seasons, apparently he's a hero, like
Yes, he
or
will.
something like that. I'm not sure what that exactly necessarily means, but yeah, Colby's a hero and Jerry's the villain.
Yes.
Why though? All she did was just flirt with the man, and the man did not reciprocate it at
Well,
any point whatsoever.
no, that's not entirely true. At the very, very start, when they were both just sunbathing and laying down in the river, and they were playing a little bit of this or that, they were getting
Oh,
along pretty well. And
yeah, but
apparently
is that flirting?
it's I guess light flirting, but I do remember they both like crunchy peanut butter. No, I prefer smooth and creamy.
Oh my gosh. I would definitely say that Jerry so far has like of all the people that have been voted off, she's probably like the most memorable person of like going up this list of, like the people have been voted off of this season of Survivor. And then up next, um
Actually, one more thing about Jerry.
yeah, go ahead.
To give her credit for this season in particular, is despite how much she was lusting for Colby, I guess she still had enough integrity to instead vote for Tina.
I was kind of wondering if part of the reason for why she didn't vote for Colby is because she had a something of a grudge against him.
Don't entirely think so.
Like it could potentially be a part of it, but I do remember she said something along the lines of gotta give it to Tina. She actually convinced Colby to bring her onto Final Tribal. Uh you deserve this win. To which we will analyze that statement a little bit further. But
Hmm.
oh, what an analysis that's gonna be. That is one that even I'm still thinking about to this day.
Okay. Then after Jerry is Nick.
I straight up remember him for being the youngest of everybody on this season, and also being like straight up the laziest that never bothered to help out with like much of anything. Like nothing on camp activities, nothing on like the necessities or anything. Like legit, what I remember is he built a chair and I think a kitchen for himself. So it's essentially like it's essentially like being in a group project and somebody puts in like the bare minimum amount of work possible to the point where you basically consider it as like contributed like to 1% of the overall grade. And that was just him.
And yet he is, or was at that time, a Harvard law student.
Yes.
Thanks, Harvard.
I'm pretty sure he went on to become something like, even bigger. I just can't like, shake the mindset that like the dude was very lazy and he definitely earned the ire of a lot of people. But the only reason for why he was still within the group was because, for all intents and purposes, like he was pretty, decent to hold up the group in challenges, and that was pretty much it.
But he didn't win anything, did he?
You know what? I don't remember. I think he helped, Kucha when it was, in the pre-merge, but in post-merge, I don't remember him particularly winning any challenges.
Neither do I.
If he did, wasn't exactly a memorable win, honestly. And now we move on over to Miss Amber.
Amber! I will never forgive you for spoiling yourself on future events regarding Amber.
Oh, come on, man. I had done such a good job at forgetting.
Oh, you did forget
I
shit.
had Oh my god. Okay, you know what? It's okay. It's okay. I believe in the
Regardless,
spoiler paradox. I believe in
regard
the spoiler paradox. I believe in the spoiler paradox.
regardless, you
Mhm.
are now forbidden from reading anything Survivor related.
Okay, fine. Promise. Okay. Just in case, we're going to leave that particular detail at that and move on to how she was in this season. I honestly thought that she was pretty much like this is probably a little bit of an odd comparison to make, but she was like the Elizabeth to the Kucha tribe. Just kind of like, a nice, amicable and sweet person that didn't really like, show much of a threat to either tribe, to be honest. I mean, granted, this is post-merge. They are all not Ogakor and not Kucha. They are all under one banner of, what was it? Baramundi, I
Yes,
think? Okay,
Baramundi.
there we go. The thing is, with her, I always saw her as essentially playing the game as very, low key, under the radar for her time on Survivor. And that kind of worked in her favor. Because I do remember, I think it was during a confessional, or this is probably just something that I ended up like kind of picking up, but I'm pretty sure it was during a confessional. It was pretty much revealed that like, she had good enough relationships with the people on the Kucha tribe to where she was able to know what those members thought of each of the Ogakor tribe members. If they viewed them as threats, if they wanted to vote off anybody from Ogakor, to be able to relay that information over to her tribe mates. Which, yes, gameplay wise, that is definitely like a good strategy to do. And honestly, if I remember correctly, I believe Elizabeth also did the same thing too. That is a confessional I do openly remember. Um, she had a close friendship with Jerry the
Hmm.
entire time. I do remember Jerry at one point she won a reward and she took Amber back to enjoy, was it like a feast or something? And I remember in that episode, everybody having gone back to tribe, were they like relieved or something that those two girls were gone, or was it just Colby that was relieved that they were
Well,
gone?
I think they were just relieved that Jerry in particular was gone.
You know what? I think you might be right about that because at that point, um, I don't think anybody really knew that Colby, Keith, and Tina were in an alliance
Right?
and excluding Amber and Jerry out from it. But other than that, like, um, actually, I keep thinking back to that instance. It's like when they came back to camp from the reward, they were just completely treated with indifference. Like nobody was particularly, happy with seeing them in comparison to like past rewards and whatnot. So that was an unintentionally comedic moment on the show, at least in my opinion.
The whole playing under the radar, that is definitely a strategy. But in the case of like Amber and even Elizabeth, I don't think that was their intention. I don't think they went into the game with that being their strategy. I think they just had the overall personality that that just led to it. The whole cute and quiet girl kind of archetype just naturally led to that I guess gameplay style.
You know what? In Amber's case, at the very least, in Amber's case, yes, for sure. Um, I mean, Elizabeth, I'm very, very certain she did like openly state that she wanted to try to get information out of the opposing tribe. Um, but Amber, though, yeah, no, I see what you mean. That wasn't something that she necessarily planned. It just kind of happened. Oh yeah, yeah, I see it now. But still, though, poor girl. I don't remember whose idea it was to ultimately vote off Amber. Um, if that was like the final member of Ogakor that Keith, Tina, and Colby just wanted to get out before making it any further closer towards the final tribal council. But yeah, poor Amber getting voted off. Like she was pretty much alone the moment that Jerry was gone.
Yeah, she had no defense after that.
She thought that she did with Colby, and Colby, being the kind of person that's like, yeah, okay, my options are open in terms of like, who I want to work with, like kind of being able to like, balance that whole image of, oh, do I want to work with Keith and Tina, or do I want to work with Amber and Jerry? We knew that almost pretty much from the beginning he was already like working closely with Keith and Tina, but yeah, dude, she was just alone. I I I actually did feel bad for her getting booted off, not gonna lie. And speaking of tribal members that I feel bad getting voted off, the next one.
Roger.
Roger. He's the sweetest old man on the show. I swear. Seriously. When you think of him, it's at the very least when I think of him, it's just very difficult not to remember his sort of like father-daughter relationship with Elizabeth, because it was just like throughout the course of this show it just came so naturally. It was just so, cultivated so well, and it was just a sweet thing to witness. I do remember his reactions to the first Survivor auction. Like they were just genuinely great, honestly. Like his smiles and everything. I remember I took screenshots of his reactions just because I loved that smile on his face. He was just so like ecstatic throughout the entire thing. Just the reactions for, spending so much money for something that ended up being garbage. Like
Yeah.
spending like an exorbitant amount of money for river water. Who was it that got that? Amber, I think.
Honestly, I remember, in terms of the auction, I remember frickin' Amber getting a can of Mountain Dew. It was like frickin' $60. $60 for four corn tortilla chips. And then somebody got, may have been Jerry or Amber. They got bits of chocolate with a small bit of peanut butter.
Oh, I forget who got that, but that was a sweet reward, no pun intended.
It's like, wow, humble beginnings for the Survivor auction.
Really, for real. Roger, I do have to say that it was very sad that, he actively asked Ogakor to spare Elizabeth by letting her make it to the end, as if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure he straight up said that she needed the money more than he did.
That sounds familiar.
Yep, it does. You know what? I do remember he was a pretty knowledgeable person, like really trying his best to like effectively help the construction of the shelter during like the very first days in the Kucha tribe, and him having his Bible, the prayers before the meals really helped to establish Kucha as kind of like as close to a like a sort of a familiar not familiar like a family dynamic almost. Um Shoot, you know what? In pre-merge, I remember he was incredibly scared of heights.
Oh,
Because one of the
that!
first challenges, yeah, one of the first challenges was you have to jump off a cliff. You have to get over to like this, like these boxes that you have to, carry through the water all the way to like one end of the river or something like that. And Roger, him being the old man, we all worried as to whether or not he was going to bring down Kucha, but like he really took it in stride. He went for it. He tried his best. And even though he was probably the reason for why Kucha performed badly in that challenge, I feel like kind of almost like a Tina situation, nobody held that against him because he really went and he fought with his fears in order to help the group out.
Yeah, and wasn't there a bit of a montage of them trying to teach him how to swim?
Yes, I believe so. Yes, yeah, that sounds familiar. I do genuinely think that that was it. But yeah, man, like Roger, a farmer with a heart of gold whose ability to survive in the game as long as he did is impressive. And with that comes the unfortunate next boot of Survivor Season 2, Elizabeth. So the other half to this father-daughter relationship, this girl was one heck of a sweetheart. She really had like just that overall like really pleasant personality on the show. And honestly, I don't know if you remember her occupation, her being a footwear designer.
Yeah,
Like,
you don't see many of
damn.
those.
And right? Like my goodness. I mean, you see like so many software analysts, so many lawyers, I mean, there's a whole list of things that, are like the most common occupations for people to have that come onto Survivor. I feel like of the seasons that I have seen, footwear designer is definitely the most unique of them all.
Then get ready for the later seasons because you're gonna see some weird occupations.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that.
Oh wait, you already know about the one hippie, the coconut vendor.
Showed me a clip about that. Oh my god.
Yeah, he's just one example of weird occupations you're gonna see throughout the show's lifetime.
Okay. Right. Thank you for reminding me of that.
You're welcome.
I- I'm looking forward to seeing that. Sorry, going back over to Elizabeth. Once again, she's another one of those people that tries to use like her relationships, cultivating good, uh, like good standing with the people on Ogakor to find out like who would they be planning to vote for, like who do they not like, who do they view as a threat, and so on and so forth. Um, I don't believe that her overall plan really worked out because I do remember the very first time that she tried to use her relationships, quote unquote social skills to try to sway votes to make a move. I want to say she tried her hardest to vote Jerry out by convincing Tina to help with it. I don't think that ended up happening because I think that was actually when Alicia got voted off. And then the next episode, they voted Jerry off. So it's like Elizabeth failed in that one episode, but then kind of won anyways. Just not quite at the right moment that she had planned for. But that I would not consider that as her victory though, just because it wasn't decided by her. Like the idea was already there from kind of like the beginning that the three Ogakor tribe member alliance, they knew they wanted Jerry out at some point, but Elizabeth didn't really do anything to like really bring that momentum forward to the point where it's like, yeah, right now, let's vote her out. But yeah, it was, pretty good that she made it to Final Four. Honestly, Roger's sacrifice in helping her to get up to that point, I think that that's like definitely one of the saddest and sweetest moments of Survivor Season 2, for sure.
Sweet because Roger's a genuinely nice person. It's sad because, well, it's not like Elizabeth won or even made it to final two.
Yes, honestly, and you could definitely understand that, like, the only way that she could really be able to stay on is if she wins immunity. As soon as she did not win that for herself, it was already decided. It's like, girl, like there's nobody else. We're voting you off. Now we make it to the final three of this post merge. The professional chef apparently does not know how to cook rice.
Yep, taking the bronze medal.
You know what's a moment that I do remember of Keith beyond all those times in which he could not really cook very well in the wilderness?
Go on.
I remember literally Keith proposed to his girlfriend over instant messaging on Survivor.
Oh, that. I totally forgot about that. Yeah, through the internet, which I imagine out in the reception was not great, and it was being filmed.
Her reaction it felt pretty lukewarm to me. To a point where I was kind of like, is she actually enthusiastic about being proposed to? I mean, well, I'm pretty sure, she said yes, if I remember correctly. But
Mm-hmm.
even so, it's like being asked like that was probably not exactly how she would have imagined Keith proposing to her, which, yeah, would definitely have caught her off guard. But yeah, Keith, there were, maybe some times in which he did come across as, arrogant for his, supposed expertise on cooking and everything, but honestly, on the show, he wasn't exactly a particularly likable person. And I don't think many of his castmates, well, not castmates, sorry, tribal members, I don't think many of them really liked him very much. Um, he was just an ally, just a means to an end. And this is the part that, analyzing the game even further, especially from knowing how Colby handled himself in this game. If it was Keith at Final 2, would anybody have picked Keith to be
No,
the winner?
no.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh my god, Colby. Seriously. What knocked Keith down from being a runner up was the fact that Colby decided Keith was not worthy of the honor of Final 2. That is such a hero mindset to have, but in the grand scheme of things, Colby, you shot yourself in the foot. Speaking of, let's move on to Colby.
Do you think the perception on Colby would have went downward if he took Keith over Tina?
That is a good what if question. Not even gonna lie. Yes, perception of him would have gone down, but I do genuinely believe that even if that did happen, they would have still voted for him anyways.
Yes.
And that's the thing that I think that Kobe should have taken into account is, well, I mean, obviously this being like, the second season of Survivor, not that many people like I don't know if everybody has like really been able to truly analyze like, what how the final tribal council went with Survivor Borneo. They just went ahead and analyzed how Richard Hatch did his game. But even so, like Hatch didn't really have much of anything to do with like deciding how final tribal was going to go. If he had it his way, I'm pretty sure he wouldn't have wanted, Kelly to be up there. He would have wanted it to be Rudy. And maybe Rudy probably would not have had like the best argument to, essentially be picked winner for Survivor Borneo. But everybody using Hatch as an example, nobody I don't think anybody up to this point knows or ever really understood the concept of jury management and, runner up management.
Yeah.
So this definitely I feel like was the season in which people really must have understood that concept well by now. Because I'm gonna go out on a limb and assume that this is the prime example that people use to essentially describe and to show that who you pick to be with you at Final Tribal really matters.
Well, also, who's on the jury matters.
That too. Because for all intents and purposes, Kobe was, I mean, in my opinion, he was definitely a pretty likable person in this season. Though I am, a little surprised that he was considered a hero. I don't entirely see how exactly. He was just,
He
really good at challenges. He was, for all intents and purposes, a people person.
he was just a he was just a honest American cowboy.
There you go. You know what? That's actually a very good description of him, especially considering the fact that his personal item was the wait, was it the US flag or the Texas flag?
Texas flag. Oh,
There we go.
that's another thing. I believe his very first confession for the season was every day I wake up, I'm thankful to be alive and I'm thankful to be a Texan. Well, well, was the population of Texas? No wonder why they like him.
Yep, indeed. Oh, you know what? And speaking of his personal item, I do remember how remember when I was talking about like the whole like acts of nature and everything of having really thrown some stuff at these people throughout the season and the floods. I remember, I think this was, I'm not sure if this happened on Borneo, but this was definitely a memorable moment for me where when all of their stuff got flooded away and they barely managed to get, their rice back and they're very quickly running out of rice. I remember at one point, Jeff actually comes over, makes a deal with them, and is like, I will trade you your shelter. I will give you more food. But that shelter also includes Colby's personal item, the flag.
Wait, was that purely because of the flood, or was that because they did not ration out the food, the rice?
No, I think I'm pretty sure it was a combination of both.
Okay.
They did lose their shelter, but they managed to, I'm pretty sure they managed to keep the keepsake for, helping them against the rain and everything. But the poor management of the rice definitely came into play here. And yeah, poor Colby, he lost his keepsake. Poor thing. Like that was his flag.
I imagine Jeff gave it back after the show concluded.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But what I'm saying is like that must have been like, a comfort to him to be able to like wake up and see, a reminder of home. And for that to be
Hmm.
taken away for like the remainder of the season, I mean, come on, that's gotta hurt. At least to some degree, especially for him. That man in this season was definitely quite the beast at challenges, for sure.
Yes,
And
the very first challenge beast, as we call
yes.
them.
Oh my goodness, the very first one. That's cool. It's not even on Survivor Borneo, it's also in the Australian Outback where there's a lot of firsts within this show. That's cool. And the fact that Colby is a first challenge piece. Oh my god. I'm sorry. I know that we're like, going on a marathon about this stuff, but it's just so mind-blowing to me whenever we analyze this, you know?
Hmm.
I love it. I love it a lot.
Oh yeah, so a bit of trivia about Colby is that I believe it's 2010. He became the host for a TV show for the History Channel.
That's great. I want to see that.
And I got more trivia. I'm pretty sure I told you this at some point. Uh, both Jerry and Amber were offered modeling gigs for Playboy.
Okay, Amber too?
Yes.
Okay, look, Jerry, I could believe it. Jerry, I might actually not be that surprising, but Amber as well?
Well, A-
Wow.
Amber had a Amber had to turn it down, and my speculation was that because she was still living with her parents at the time, and her parents just said no.
Oh my gosh. Wait, didn't. Oh god, I'm thinking that Colleen had something similar, right?
Oh yeah, Colleen too.
Yeah, I think yeah. No, I believe it. Absolutely. I'm kind of noticing a pattern here. It's the pretty and the sweet girls. Oh, okay. Wait, actually no. Okay, so funny enough, I kind of had a feeling I somewhat had an idea as to like that Colby would end up not winning this season because of the car that
Oh
he won
yeah, you
in
spoiled
the reward.
yourself. You spoiled
I
yourself
did
about the cars.
not. No, no, no,
You
no, no, no.
technically did.
No. Okay,
Yes,
technically, but I
yes.
didn't know it at the time. I didn't know it at look, okay. I forget which season it was that I forget if it was 46 or 47, but I do remember at a certain point, I think it was Entertainment Weekly was interviewing Jeff, and they did ask him, "Hey, so what happened to all those cool rewards that you used to give, like um, new era of Survivor or something?" Like, yeah, like what happened to the cars, man? And he's like, yeah, there's a curse with those cars. It's probably best that we do not bring it back because it tends not to do very well for the contestants. And I'm like, I have no idea what on earth this guy means, but they used to offer cars as rewards. Damn, that sucks, but okay. Literally just that overall thing, I was like, oh no, you're kidding me.
And this is why you are no longer allowed to read upon Survivor.
Dang. Okay, but just a Survivor Wiki. Am I not allowed to read anything like, from interviews from people that get booted off of these current seasons of Survivor?
I'm only tempted to say no just to be spiteful.
God.
Because
Okay, well, to be fair though, it probably might be the best idea not to read them because this is how I inadvertently got spoiled to this quote unquote curse. So I think that regardless, it might actually be a good idea to not like read up on that stuff anymore. But that said though, once again, like with Colby, he was a good player, definitely a challenge beast. He was a likable person. I don't think I ever really had like any issues with the man except for just the fact that his not necessarily the jury management, but it was more so like who he decided would be next to him at the end with final two. I think that was ultimately what makes me feel sad for him. He had it all perfectly lined up. He just made a bad decision.
yep,
And that was it. Speaking of that bad decision, let's go ahead and talk about the winner of Survivor the Australian Outback.
Tina.
Tina! So, what do you think about Tina?
I'm gonna be honest. I think this season there was so much spotlight and focus on Colby and even Jerry to where I have to ask myself, what exactly did Tina do to win?
I've had a lot of time to think about that.
Was it just because she was likable by literally everyone?
That, but also she did have a hand in like, her jury management was actually pretty good. But I will say though, even with all of her decisions and all of her like good social standing with pretty much everybody from both her tribe and the opposing tribe, even with all of that, there's a part of me that still kind of thinks like she was just an okay winner in my book. And I honestly thinking back on it, I still think she is to a degree. It's just that after analyzing, like these episodes a bit more, I would say that she had a good amount of control in terms of who was considered a threat and who would be the next people to go.
Yeah, I can see that assessment.
There's a good terminology for this. I mean, she's not like a what would be like the sort of I guess the female equivalent of a godfather mafia type boss or something like that. Like essentially being like the sort of a like the matriarchal figure that essentially decides how things go. Is kind of like how I view her in this season. Like she had enough social standing with everybody, she had enough good reasoning to be able to make certain arguments as to pick and choose who ought to stay to benefit not only myself, but also to benefit my group, my alliance, and who would potentially mess it all up. That aspect to her that allowed her to win this game of Survivor. Like she wasn't, because I don't think at any point did she ever present herself, like even during confessional, she never presented herself as like any kind of a arrogant or cocky player that like, everybody would essentially dislike. Like she actually came across as very kind and likable. And she was definitely very strategic in the social regard, essentially like for all intents and purposes, being the brains behind the three-member alliance with Ogakor. But she was a lot more low-key about it than, say, Hatch ever was in Survivor Borneo. Like, Hatch was just straightforward about it. Vote with the alliance, and you're all set to go. With Toggy. Especially with the way that they were voting off of Pagong, like, one by one by one. And if you went against them, then, yeah, like, you're out. But Tina was just a lot more low-key about, like, pretty much everything. She was definitely, like, a good balance between being under the radar, but also being direct enough to direct how the game should play out for herself and for the people around her.
There's no denying that, yeah, she had good control and social standing, but at the same time, somewhere in the back of my head, I can't stop thinking this literally just came down to Colby choosing Tina.
She was likable enough to convince at least one more person on the jury to vote for her. I don't know who was the tiebreaker, but it was very much split down the middle for who would end up winning.
That does run parallel to what, I guess, kind of what Hatch did. Because in the final three for Borneo, Richard Hatch literally voluntarily lost because he knew the more likely outcome was that Kelly would win and that she would take him to final two, and Rich, or no, not Rich, Rudy would just be a vote for Hatch anyways.
Did he plan for that? I
Y-
don't remember if he did.
yeah, he did.
Oh my gosh. I think I forgot about that. Okay, never mind. I take back what I said. Hatch was definitely well, I mean, we know that he set up pretty much like how Survivor ought to be played, especially like managing jury, but like in this particular regard, when it came to Rudy and essentially putting him on the jury, damn, Hatch really thought of everything, didn't he? Gosh.
Yeah,
Oh, that's really good.
because my point is that Richard Hatch knew his standing amongst those other two. Tina also knew her standing amongst those two, and she probably had enough foresight to know that Colby would take her. That and Colby just wanting to be seen as a good person and whatnot. You know, why would you not take the sweet old lady? Why would you take
Exactly.
Keith?
Hmm.
Why would you take the guy who cannot cook rice?
That came off as super arrogant and everybody just disliked.
Yes.
Because it's very difficult to really um think of every single instance that Tina either not necessarily foresaw but kind of planned out for certain outcomes to happen to benefit her. Because actually, now that I'm mentioning that particular detail, I do remember at one point, one of the challenges was to literally just stand on a pole, do not climb off in order to like, win immunity. I think who was it? I want to say it was when Mitch got voted off. That was when Keith was it Mitch? Keith knew at one point he was in danger of being completely voted off. I'm very certain he whispered over to Tina's like, "Dude, please let me win. This is the only way that I can stay in the game. This is the only way that our alliance will remain together." To which Tina was like, "Okay, I'm getting off," and essentially let Keith win. I don't know if you remember that challenge.
I actually do not.
I remember in particular because that was like the one instance where we got to see the amount of muscle, surprisingly, that Keith has. Like, damn, dude. uh, I don't know why that was like one shot that kind of like surprised me a little bit, but I do remember he asked, like, dude, like, please let me win. Let me stay in the game a little bit longer. Though I can't speak to, whether or not she actively knew that giving him that win would secure him even further in being in that was definitely like a benefit for the long term. Because now you've got an ally that most likely is never going to betray you because you you let them win. You sacrificed a win for yourself in order to keep an alliance going. Yeah, I mean, just looking back on it all, I mean, her game overall was super low key, and it did genuinely seem as though no one ever seemed to target her at all.
Yeah, I also noticed
Like,
that too.
do you remember any instance whatsoever in which anybody wanted to like vote her off actively?
I was I was actually also asking myself, at any point did anyone cast a vote against her?
I don't think so.
Because otherwise she had an almost perfect game, what we call in the survivor community.
What would you say barred her for being able to have a quote unquote perfect game?
Well, it's just that Colby was also likable.
Oh yeah, that too. Yeah, for sure. Because like going back to that one, the disgusting dishes challenge. I don't know if that's exactly what it's called, but I'm just calling it for being able to remember it. Um, Going back to that, I did mention that even if she lost that challenge, nobody had any real issue with her losing that challenge. Nobody gave her any crap for it. Nobody threatened to vote her off because she failed her team. She still managed to have these relationships with her tribal members to a point where nobody ever wanted to consider even voting her off at all. She was just that likable amongst everybody. Honestly, for all of that respect. I mean, in my eyes, she was not a memorable winner like Richard was in Borneo, but she still played a damn good game for all
Ye-
intents and purposes.
yeah.
And I do remember Jerry did mention in her confessional, I mean, obviously, despite us knowing to some degree she still must have been really salty that Colby, voted her out. But um, she did mention something along the lines of like, Tina was a very good player enough to leverage her bond with Colby, who clearly relied on all of his challenge wins to be the reason for why he should get the $1 million. Obviously, that being, looking back on it, that was his downfall. But Tina, I would say she was able to plead her case better than Colby. Because even at Final Tribal Council, Colby didn't really have a whole lot to say in terms of like why he deserves $1 million, but Tina was very articulate in her arguments in all of the instances that she pointed out to where she did have control over how the game would play out, the relationships that she cultivated and, everything, so on and so forth. So she did do good, for sure, to earn her win. But I do think that she's definitely going to go down as a sole survivor who won big part because of the runner-up's poor decision to take her to the end.
Well, that and also looking at it, Tina's game, I would say, was like very subtle.
Mhm. I'm not saying that, like it's the biggest reason for why she ended up winning, but it is one of the most memorable reasons for why she won. Memorable, not the biggest, just memorable reason for why she won is because Colby made the poor decision to bring her to Final Tribal Council.
Right.
But hey, ultimately speaking, that worked out rather beautifully in her favor. Good on you, Tina. Good on you. A sole survivor who won because of a subtle game with good social standing with everybody and a good mind for strategy with it. I do applaud it for that though.
Yep. First female winner of the show's history.
Congratulations, Tina. So all in all, how would you rate Australian Outback against Survivor Borneo?
Mm, it's interesting because season one is often described as kind of documentary-ish, and I would say that's still somewhat here.
Hmm.
A bit less so because people are realizing, hey, this is an actual game. There's a way to play it as seen by Richard Hatch. But if you want to talk about entertainment and big personalities, well, season one we had Richard, Rudy, and Sue. Shoot, even Colleen and
And
Jervis,
Greg, your
Greg.
face, and Greg, and Sean. Like, there's a lot of memorable people on season one, and same. You could say the same thing for season two to a degree as well. Though I would say personally, I remember season one's players more than I do season two. Interestingly enough,
I would say the same thing.
I think that Australian Outback, in at the very least in one aspect, being an improvement over Borneo was the the upgrades in the production quality, I would say.
Yes.
Because like you said, Borneo was a lot more of like a documentary kind of style, but you can definitely see how they kind of veered away a little bit with it to kind of like actually give it the feel of a TV show. Of something that is like, being filmed, but not necessarily in a documentary in that rough visual style per se. I think that the Outback had just a few more memorable moments in comparison, like the river flooding away their entire camp and all of their supplies, and then having to find their canister and like the river. Um, just like I also remember. Oh gosh, I wish I had mentioned this sooner. Do you remember the walk for the final three to create like their own idols? Connecting themselves to like, be one with the land, remember all your memories and whatnot, and then like cast it all so that it could be a part of this environment.
Yes.
Little moments like that really help to build that bond of like, how Survivor can actually be more of like a spiritual experience for its players and not just a game show. It's little things like this that they really went a lot more into to establish just how memorable and how impactful Survivor actually can be, not just for its audience, but especially for the players that are participating. And, you know, a lot of crazy moments, you know, the whole bloodthirst of hunting a pig, medical evacuations, some of the challenges where people had to overcome, fears. I mean, season one also had, its moments like that, but I think that the way the production quality with it being filmed in less of that documentary style is probably what makes Australian Outback be a technical improvement over Borneo specifically.
So, Australian Outback had better moments, but Borneo had the more memorable, bigger personalities.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree with that statement.
I do think part of those memorable moments for Australian Outback is because we do get to see the location at work, the environment, the weather.
Yes, absolutely.
We did not get that entirely in Borneo.
Yeah. And honestly, in comparison to this new era, I miss being able to actually see like what goes on as these people are surviving these days. I get out of Fiji too. Dagnabbit Jeff. I know it's cost effective, but like it is real freaking stale right now.
Well,
Like,
he also has official citizenship for Fiji, and he lives there.
Oh my god. Okay, well, shoot, that just makes a whole lot more sense now, doesn't it?
Yeah, Jeff himself literally has no incentive to leave Fiji.
Ay, ay, ay. The pagong, the pagonging or something. I can't remember if that was like a terminology within the survivor community, but like it's where you're voting off members of the same tribe, like one by one by one by one by one, until it's literally just the last tribe left at a final tribal that gets taken from Borneo. Um, I think that overall, Australian Outback was, I would say it's probably on equal grounds with Borneo overall. It's difficult to really say whether or not, like, one season over the other is completely better. It's probably easier for me to say that, like they're both actually pretty good in equal stance. They just happen to be like, better in certain regards, but it's like you give them a point in this, you give them a point in that, you give them a point in this, and you give them a point in that to the point where it's like they have an equal score with each other, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with that assessment.
All in all, I definitely very much enjoyed Australian Outback. And I can see how, at the very least of the seasons that I have watched, this being the most viewed season, you said? Definitely see why this one was it, for sure. But I'm also very glad that after the season they did not add those 3 extra days to the format because it did not do it any favors whatsoever.
And with that, we will eventually be back for season 3 Survivor Africa. And it'll be a first time for both you and I.
Oh my god, this is gonna be so cool. This is the one where you actually had the wildlife potentially attacking the tribe, right?
Yeah, they actually encountered the chupacabra. He was on a leash. It turns out his owner was Bigfoot.